This is Storybook ASMR, and it's me, Julia. I am so excited today because this is the first session of my ASMR book club, which I'm thinking to call Quiet Book Club. And today we're gonna talk about the book that is called Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Before we start, I want to say which book I will be talking about next, so maybe you can read it as well before the next session and join me for the discussion, or maybe you read it already. So at first I wanted to talk about another book, but when I finished reading Fourth Wing and while I was preparing to this session, I remembered that I see, because Fourth Wing is quite popular now, it's trending, and I remembered about the other book that is constantly trending, at least on BookTok and BookTube, I think. If you like fantasy, and especially fantasy romance, you probably read it, and this is ACOTAR series. Yes, I haven't read it yet till 3 days ago. I read another series by Sarah Maas, The Throne of Glass. I read it a couple of years ago, and I know that there are many fans of ACOTAR series, but I remember that I have started reading this, the first book, several times, and I don't know, it wasn't for me. I guess, I don't know, the beginning was not, I couldn't read it further several times, and this time I decided to try it again, and well, yeah, I quite like it, and I'm not that obsessed as many people are, especially girls, but what I want to do is to talk about the first book of the series in my next video, and also about the second book, because I've heard that the second book is even better, and I want to read first 2 books of the series before the next book club, and then I want to talk about it. And as I know there are many fans, it would be nice to hear your opinion about the first 2 books. Of course, if you read the whole series, you have more to say. So the next book we're going to talk about is A Court of Thorn and Roses, and the second book of the series, which I forgot, of Mist, I think A Court of Mist and Fury. I hope I'm not mistaken. So yeah, but let's get back to the book that we're talking about today. And before we start, one more thing. I also like puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles, and I've decided that while I'll be talking to you about the book, I will be doing puzzles, my daughter's puzzles. She loves it as well. I have some notes here, my questions. All right, okay, so there will be obviously spoilers, so at first I want to talk about the writer, and then we will talk about just the book, what's it about, what it is about, and then we're gonna start answering, well, I will start answering questions, book club questions. Alright, so the author of this book is Rebecca Yarros. She's an American writer. She was for a long time a military wife, but her website says that her husband recently retired from his military service, so they live happily, and they have 6 kids. Oh, she has 6 kids. Can you imagine how she can even have time to write books? Well, she started writing while her husband was working, was in service. And she actually already, it's not her first novel, Fourth Wing, and she has published over, I think, 15 books already, and they were not fantasy books. I haven't read any of her other books yet, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna read it because I'm quite a fantasy girl. I like to read fantasy, romance, and also high fantasy. Well, at this stage of my life. So, yeah. I don't know if other novels she wrote are the same good. But what else we know about her? Okay, and then she has... So it's not I don't think it's a spoiler. You will find out it quite soon that the main character of Fourth Wing, Violet Sorringale, she has this disease, and it's based on Rebecca's disease. So she has the same in real life. It's called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a condition which affects connective tissues in the human body. Okay, so this is basically all the information that I wanted to tell about the author. I also heard that she said that she wrote Fourth Wing because she wanted to, she wrote it for people who do not usually read fantasy, and as an entry book to fantasy world, which I think she managed to do quite successfully. I think her book is a good fantasy. It's very fast-paced, a lot of things happening. It has dragons, it has badass main character. Obviously there is a love story and some spice, which is not actually always in fantasy books, but it's a good introduction to fantasy romance genre, I would say. Let me read the short premise for the book. 20-year-old Violet Sorringale was supposed to enter the scribe quadrant, living a quiet life among books and history, but the commanding general, also known as her mother, has ordered Violet to join the hundreds of candidates striving to become the elite of Navarre, the land where they live, dragon riders. So she's about to become a dragon rider, but for that she needs to enter that elite college, war college, but she needs to do a lot of things before she even gets a dragon. So it's quite hard, and she's not built for this. She's quite weak. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I know there are people who are obsessed with this book and they would give like 100 stars, but I have some things to say. So from this point there will be spoilers. So if you haven't read this book, read it first and then keep watching. Okay, so let's start with the first question of my book club, which is, what was your favorite part of the book and what was the least favorite part? So the most favorite part, I think, was the beginning. If we talk about big parts of the books, not the scenes. So I think the beginning was good. It was very engaging. It was very emotional. It's not like a slow beginning. It goes straight away. You are kind of thrown in this events that happen to Violet, and from the beginning you start relate to her troubles, like you understand that it's hard and how hard it is and how scary. So I guess I was very impressed and surprised by the beginning of the book. It's very engaging and fast-paced, as I said. This is, I think, the main word of this book, fast-paced. It was so fast. Everything was happening so fast. I don't know why, but the least favorite scene on that part of the book was the ending, I think. No, not the ending, the final battle. And I usually like to read about battles. I like to read those fights and final battles and everything, but here, I don't know, I was reading it through really quickly, and even the Liam situation, of course it was sad, but somehow it didn't touch me. I don't know why. That was weird. Maybe I'm something's wrong with me, but I don't know. I couldn't relate. Of course, the ending was interesting, this cliffhanger about the brother, but before that, I don't know, I didn't like it. Okay, let's talk about the characters. Of course, the most relatable character was the main character, Violet. I have to say that reading from her point of view was quite interesting, and she was very, very relatable. Like, I can imagine myself being thrown to this kind of situation, and I would have died on the parapet, that's how it's called. I would have died there. She's definitely a relatable character for girls. She's well written, and you believe her, and you understand her feelings, and you kind of feel for her. That's what I liked. And she's likable. Yeah, she's not. Also, sometimes, main female characters in this genre, they can be annoying sometimes, because they're so kind and brave and passionate and etc., that sometimes they try to help everyone, and this way they get in trouble, and then all the good guys need to save her from that. Like, I remember Vampire Diaries. I was reading it or watching this show when I was younger, and I remember at some point I was annoyed that Elena was trying to save everyone, and when she was trying to do that, she got in so much trouble every time, and every time they tried to save her, and then she was like, oh, but I need to save her, this is my fault, like all this kind of stuff. It's really annoying. And sometimes it happens to girls, this kind of characters in this kind of books. But here, even though she tried to save everyone, but it was kind of reasonable, like it was acts of true kindness and bravery. And that's why she was chosen by 2 dragons and blah blah blah. Like, I believed her reasons for her actions that I liked. The least favorite character, I think, is Jack Barlow, but not because he is an evil character, he's a bad person, but also because his reasons I didn't believe. He, of course, I know that he hated her. He thought that she is a weak person, and she's not worth being a writer. And then I guess he was jealous at some point when she got all those dragons and stuff. But that's it. Like, I think I wanted a little bit more of his backstory, why he was so hateful. Because if his main reasons are that the rider's quadrant is only for strong people, for special people, and she was Commanding General's daughter. Maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he was really jealous, but yeah, I just think that I didn't get enough of his reasons why he was so hateful towards her. Why he wanted to kill her so much. There are some reasons, like obvious reasons on the surface, but I felt like for me it wasn't enough. And then he died, she killed him, and then we don't know why he was so hateful. Because people don't become evil. Like they're not born evil, right? Something happens to them that makes them bad, right? So there was something that happened when he was grown up that way. I don't know. Which scene has stuck with you the most? Well, I think, by the way, I finished the puzzle. I think I will start another one. That was Frozen puzzle. The scene, okay, so I think my favorite scene, and that was the romantic scene, I would say, where he was teaching her, training her on the mat for the first time. And this scene was so hot, and so the tension between them from Violet's point of view was described so well that I could feel everything. Like I could imagine his body against her body, like I'm Violet, like, you know what I mean? It was so well explained and described, and the scene was so hot, and I think it was even hotter than the sex scene that they had. What surprised you most about the book? I think what surprised me about the book is that I liked it that much. I was quite skeptical at the beginning, but here everyone was just saying, oh my god, this is one of the best books of the year. It's so good. And because I read not only fantasy romance, and I actually like high fantasy a lot, and I also started reading fantasy not a while ago, like maybe 3 years ago actually. Before I was a reader as well. I think I'm a bookworm. So, but I read mostly classic books and, well, thrillers and mystery books. And then at some point I read The Witcher. And then my fantasy story began. And I know those people who say, oh, this is the best book of the year. They usually read mostly fantasy romance. That's why I was quite skeptical about it. But I think it's a good book. It's an interesting book, and it's well written. And I'm waiting for the next book. I would like to know what happens next. How did it impact you? I wouldn't say it impacted me in any way. Maybe in a way that I've decided that I need to read fantasy romance, more fantasy romance, that I quite like it. Okay, let's make this puzzle. Okay, the next question is, would you want to read more books set in that world? yes, as I said, I'm waiting for the next book, which will be released in November this year. And also, I would be interested to read about this world and about other people living in this world, and maybe from the point of view of flyers, Griffon flyers, maybe about some character from that side. And maybe there would be an interesting badass character on that side. Like, yeah, I would definitely be interested in reading stories set in this world. What is the significance of the title? Would you have given the book a different title? It's a good title. I thought about it actually. I don't think I would come up with a better title. Winged Leader. But it's not about Xaden, it's about Violet, right? And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about Xaden later for sure, because I have something to say. Maybe Winged Leader, maybe violence. If you know, you know. What did you like the most, the least about the book? What I like the most, that it was, I think, entertaining and engaging. Yeah, as I said, like, I enjoyed reading it. It was like I couldn't stop reading it. It was good. The least, well, there are just some things that I didn't like. I wouldn't say that there, like, overall there was something bad about this book. Like, as I said, I have some questions to some characters' arcs, and there is thing about Xaden that I want to talk about, but let's do it a little bit later. Are there any books that you would compare this book to? Yeah, I think what's the name of it? Oh my gosh, I forgot. Katniss Everdeen. And also maybe Zodiac Academy. Yeah. Of course, they're not the same. It's different books and the characters are very different, but I haven't read many fantasy romance books. So maybe it's not my place to say. Okay, plot twists. Yeah, so I think like this plot twist, for example, like when she got 2 dragons instead of 1, or, well, it's not a plot twist, it's just a character's arc, like, I mean, Dane being an asshole. But those moments were kind of not predictable. I can't say that I expected them, but I felt like I was led to them. But as for the main plot twist at the end about Brennan, her brother, being alive, I think that was quite good. I definitely didn't expect that. I wasn't like, oh my god, surprised, but yeah, but I would like to know what happened to him, like his part of the story, what actually happened, how he survived. So I would, yeah, be interested to read the next book. So I think it was a good plot twist. How did I feel about the ending? Well, I guess, yeah, it was fine. And I think maybe for the first book in the series, it shouldn't be like very impressive. Like, it's a good thing to have a cliffhanger for the next book, But usually when we talk about the ending in the series, we talk about the last book, right? Because there's so many things will happen in the next books for sure, and I saw that there will be 5 books in the series, so let's see what happens in the 5th book. Okay, and finally, the last thing I want to talk about is the love story, right? The love relationships, because this is an important part of the fantasy romance. What I want to say first is that I loved the enemies to lovers trope, how it was used here. Of course, overall I like this trope. Like I don't know, I think all fantasy romance readers love this kind of story, and I liked how it developed, and it was also quite reasonable, because sometimes, when it's not well written, you kind of don't understand how this love happened and how this passion appeared, because sometimes it's out of nowhere, nothing happens, and then wow, they're boom and they're in love. Here it was kind of, I don't know, it felt natural. The only thing is, and that's what I wanted to talk about, about Xaden. So yeah, I think I felt why he fell for Violet, why he liked her, and why his feelings started to evolve, his feelings towards her. But what I didn't like, and I think that's not only about this book, but I think about romance books in general, I don't like when the male character, when he is usually a very calm, collected person, and he doesn't say much, and when he says something, it's quite meaningful, and that's why his words and actions are so important, because they show his character and his personality. And then when this love relationships that they have evolves to the point where they say about their feelings to each other, this male character starts to be like, it's okay for him to be vulnerable, to become vulnerable, or like to show his vulnerable side, his soft side. That makes him attractive, right? But he just started to say so many things about how he likes her, how he loves her, how she makes him feel. And for me, it felt like a lot. He was like talking a lot, and that's why all the words he was saying didn't feel like, it was a little bit cringy. I don't know. Maybe it's just my feeling. It felt like all the words he was saying, it would be something that a girl would love to hear from her man. Like, it's okay if a male character is always like that. He's like always open about his feelings, and then it feels fine if he's always like that. But here he was quite close. It's okay if he opens in front of her. I feel like it happened maybe too fast. In real life, a person like that, who is usually very close and who keeps his feelings inside, he wouldn't be so open all of a sudden when he feels like she loves him as well. He would still be a little bit close for a while, right? I hope what I'm saying here makes sense. So if he would be less talkative about his feelings, I feel like I would believe him more, because his words would be like, every word would felt really meaningful. But overall, their love story, it was really, really enjoyable. Dane, it was interesting actually. I loved also Dane's arc. Like, I mean, I didn't like how he what he did, but or what he was saying, but you know, at first I expected that he would be like a nice guy and he would always be a nice guy, but she just, even if she wanted to, she couldn't have the same feelings for him as for Zayden, and we would just be, oh, poor Dane. But then he appeared to be not a very nice person, and it was an interesting way of how his arc was developing. I really liked it. It was unusual, I would say, for this kind of for this genre. I think I answered all the questions that I had prepared. So I hope I was not very passionate talking about it. Because if you start talking about the book, it's kind of hard to keep yourself calm. If you're a reader, you understand me, especially the book you enjoyed. So I hope you liked me answering the questions. I hope it was not really messy and you could understand what I was trying to say. I would really enjoy to have comments about the book, if you liked it or not, if you agree with me or disagree, and it's totally fine if you disagree. Because that's the point of also discussing books, because we can see different points of view, different opinions, and we can think about it. I think it's really nice to have a discussion. So if you have something to say about the book or about the author, I would love to hear it. And also, I have some books planned ahead. If you have some recommendations, or you would like to talk about some, or you would like me to talk about some book that you loved or you didn't like, and you would like me to read it and talk about it, you can also write those books in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this book club session. I really enjoyed. I wanted to put all the puzzles together that I have prepared, but I was so excited to talk about the book that I forgot completely about the puzzles. So yeah, see you next week.